In this video, we're going to be breaking down the darkest One Piece episodes. So let's get started with our first episode. Episode 33 of One Piece, titled Usopp's Death, Luffy, Yet to Land, from Season 1, hits you like a truck. This episode shows Nami stabbing Usopp in the stomach and watching him fall into the water, apparently dead. It's one of the most messed up betrayals in early One Piece, and it completely breaks your heart. Nami has been stuck working for the Arlong pirates for years. She steals treasure for them so they won't destroy her village. It's a terrible deal, but it's the only way to keep everyone she loves alive. The problem is, Luffy's crew keeps showing up and ruining everything. They don't understand that their help is actually making things worse for everyone. Things go downhill fast when Zoro breaks into Arlong Park by himself. He beats up a bunch of fishmen and causes major damage before escaping. The fishmen are angry, and they start getting suspicious about Nami. They think maybe she helped Zoro get away. Then Usopp shows up on the island trying to help his friends, but he just gets himself captured. Kuroubi is one of Arlong's main guys, and he's really smart. He goes to check Zoro's prison cell and finds cut ropes. Someone definitely helped the swordsman escape. But that's not even the worst part. He also finds a treasure map hidden in Nami's house. This proves she's been keeping money from Arlong instead of giving him everything like she's supposed to. When they bring Usopp to Arlong Park, Nami shows up to defend herself. But Kuroubi has all this evidence against her. The treasure map, Zoro's escape, everything looks really bad. The fishmen don't trust her anymore, and they want proof that she's still loyal to them. Not just words. They want her to actually do something to prove it. The test they give her is horrible. They want her to kill Usopp right there in front of everyone. Just murder him with no hesitation to show she's still on their side. It's a sick game, but Nami doesn't have any choice. If she refuses, they'll know she's betraying them, and her village will suffer. You can see the pain in Nami's eyes, but she can't show it. She walks up to Usopp with a knife in her hand. Usopp probably thinks she's going to cut him free or something. He trusts her completely. That makes what happens next even more brutal. Nami drives the knife straight into Usopp's stomach. He screams in pain as blood starts pouring out. It's not a quick stab either. She really puts the blade in deep. The fishmen are watching every second to make sure she's really doing it. Then she kicks his bleeding body into the pool where he sinks under the water. The pool goes quiet. Usopp doesn't come back up. No bubbles, no movement, nothing. Everyone thinks he's dead, including the audience watching at home. The fishmen are satisfied with Nami's performance. She passed their sick test and proved her loyalty through murder. Nami walks away like nothing happened. Her face is completely blank, showing no emotion at all. She looks like a cold killer who just murdered her friend without caring. The fishmen believe the act completely and stop suspecting her of betrayal. Johnny is hiding nearby and sees the whole thing. He watches in horror as Nami apparently kills Usopp. Later, he tells Luffy and the others that Usopp is dead and Nami killed him. You can imagine how devastating this news is for the crew. This scene destroys everything you thought you knew about Nami. Before this, lots of fans hoped she was secretly planning to help her friends. Maybe she was gathering information or waiting for the right moment to turn against Arlong. But watching her stab Usopp kills those hopes completely. The betrayal feels so real because Nami doesn't want to do it. She's desperate, but that doesn't make it any less painful to watch. Your heart breaks for Usopp, who trusted her completely, and it breaks for Nami, who had to make an impossible choice. What makes this moment so dark is how realistic it feels. Sometimes, good people get forced into terrible situations where every choice leads to someone getting hurt. Nami chose to save her village by sacrificing her friend. It's not heroic or noble, it's just tragic. The scene also shows how cruel the Arlong pirates really are. They enjoy making people suffer. Forcing Nami to kill her friend is psychological torture designed to break her spirit completely. Arlong could have just asked her to prove her loyalty in other ways, but he specifically chose something that would hurt her emotionally. This episode proves that One Piece's darkest moments don't come from monsters or supernatural threats. They come from humans being cruel to each other. The emotional damage from this betrayal hits way harder than any physical fight. It makes you question everything about friendship, loyalty, and what people will do to survive. The worst part is that everyone believes Nami is a killer now. Her friends think she murdered Usopp in cold blood. Her enemies think she's completely loyal to them. She's trapped in this horrible lie with no way out. The psychological pressure must be unbearable. The timing of this betrayal makes it even worse. Just when the crew was starting to feel like a real family, everything falls apart. Usopp was probably the most innocent member of the group, always trying to make people laugh and feel better. Seeing him get stabbed by someone he trusted is heartbreaking. What's really messed up is how the fishmen react to the stabbing. They don't show any sympathy or remorse. They just watch Usopp bleed and sink into the water like it's entertainment. Chu and Kuroubi actually seem pleased that Nami followed through with their sick test. The blood in the water is a powerful visual that stays with you. In the anime, they censored it by making the blood white instead of red, but it's still disturbing. Watching Usopp's life drain out of him while Nami stands there emotionless is nightmare fuel. This moment sets up everything that comes later in the arc. When the truth finally comes out, it makes Nami's situation even more heartbreaking. But right now, all we see is betrayal and apparent murder. It's one of the most brutal scenes in early One Piece, and it stays with you long after the episode ends. The stabbing scene works because it feels completely hopeless. There's no last-minute rescue, no clever trick, no happy ending, just a desperate woman making a horrible choice to protect people she loves. That's what makes it so so disturbing and memorable. The episode title itself is misleading in a cruel way. Usopp's death makes it sound like maybe he survives, but watching him sink into that pool with blood pouring from his wound makes death seem certain. The question mark feels like false hope when you're watching the actual scene play out. Nami stabbing Usopp already feels like the ultimate betrayal, but things get even worse when Arlong's corrupt marine ally Nezumi shows up and shoots Nojiko in cold blood. Episode 37 of One Piece, titled Luffy Stands Up, End of a Broken Promise, from Season 1, shows one of the most heartless acts of cruelty in the series. Marine Captain Nezumi shoots Nojiko in the back while she's trying to protect her sister Nami. It's absolutely brutal and shows that the people who are supposed to protect you can be the worst monsters of all. Nezumi has been working with Arlong for years, taking dirty money to look the other way while fishmen terrorize innocent villagers. Nami has been busting her ass for 8 years, stealing treasure and saving every penny to hit 100 million berries. That's the price Arlong set for her village's freedom. She's done terrible things to get that money, betraying friends and joining pirate crews just to save everyone she loves. But right when she's almost there, Arlong screws her over completely. The bastard tips off Nezumi about where Nami hides her treasure, so this corrupt marine captain shows up with a whole squad of soldiers, claiming they need to take stolen goods. But everyone knows this is just robbery with extra steps. They're stealing 8 years of Nami's blood, sweat, and tears. Nezumi and his thugs completely trash Nami's house looking for the money. They destroy everything she owns, turning her home upside down like common criminals. Nami realizes this is Arlong's plan all along. He never meant to honor their deal. He's been setting up this betrayal from day one, using the Marines to steal her savings so he never has to give up control of the village. When Nami sees her life's work being destroyed, she completely loses it. She attacks Nezumi with her bare hands, screaming and clawing at him like a wild animal. The poor girl has been pushed way past her breaking point. That's when Nojiko tries to calm her sister down and pull her away from the Marines. Big mistake. Nezumi pulls out his gun and shoots Nojiko right in the back. No warning, no hesitation, just cold blood. The bullet hits her in the waist, and she drops to the ground bleeding everywhere. Nami's scream when she sees her sister get shot is absolutely heartbreaking. It's pure agony and despair rolled into one horrible sound. Nojiko has always been the good sister, the calm one who keeps everyone together. She raised Nami, protected her, and never asked for anything in return. Watching her collapse with blood pooling around her body breaks something inside Nami that can never be fixed, and Nezumi acts like shooting an innocent woman is just another day at the office. The Marines find all 93 million berries that Nami saved over 8 years. Nezumi takes a huge chunk for himself because why not? He's not even pretending this is legitimate law enforcement anymore. He's just a common thief wearing a uniform, stealing from a desperate woman who's been fighting to save her village. All that money disappears into Marine pockets, while Nojiko bleeds on the ground like garbage. After these scumbags leave, a village doctor patches up Nojiko's wounds. She lives, thank God, but the damage goes way beyond the bullet hole. Everyone in the village finally understands that playing nice will never work against Arlong. When the Marines themselves are criminals, the whole system is broken beyond repair. This betrayal completely destroys what's left of Nami's hope. She goes to Arlong Park one last time, begging to make some kind of new deal. But Arlong just laughs in her face. Technically, he didn't break his promise because he never said he wouldn't use Marines to steal her money. The legal loophole makes his betrayal even more sick and twisted. When Nami gets back to the village, all the townspeople are ready to march on Arlong Park with farming tools and kitchen knives. They know they'll probably die, but they can't watch Nami suffer anymore. That's when she finally snaps and starts stabbing the Arlong pirate's tattoo on her shoulder, trying to cut it out of her own skin with a knife. Nezumi shooting Nojiko shows everything wrong with power in One Piece. Marines are supposed to be the good guys who protect innocent people from pirates and criminals, but this piece of garbage proves that wearing a badge doesn't make you decent. In fact, he's worse than most pirates because he hides behind the law while committing crimes. The shooting also shows how families get destroyed by conflicts they never wanted to be part of. Nojiko didn't ask to be in this war between Nami and Arlong. She just wanted to protect her little sister and got a bullet in the back for it. Her blood on the ground represents every innocent person who gets hurt by corrupt power. This moment kills the last bit of hope that Nami could fix everything by herself. For 8 years, she believed that following the rules and saving money would eventually buy everyone's freedom. But when the law itself is criminal, playing by the rules becomes impossible. The game was rigged from the start. The scene reveals how deep Arlong's corruption really goes. He owns Marines, government officials, and probably tons of other powerful people. The whole system is designed to keep people like Nami trapped forever, no matter how hard they fight or how much they sacrifice. Nezumi's casual violence makes him scarier than any devil fruit user or sea monster. He's just a greedy coward who shoots women in the back for beer money. That makes him more terrifying because we all know people like him exist in real life. The blood from Nojiko's wound becomes the final thing that brings Luffy into this fight. When Nami finally breaks down and asks for help, she's begging him to tear down a corrupt system that protects criminals and punishes victims. She wants him to destroy everything that made this nightmare possible. This episode proves that One Piece hits hardest when it shows human cruelty instead of supernatural threats. Nezumi shooting Nojiko hurts more than any monster attack because it feels so real and unfair. It's the kind of injustice that makes you want to reach through the screen and strangle someone. What makes it even worse is how everyone reacts to the shooting. Nezumi doesn't show any remorse or even acknowledge that he just shot an innocent woman. His soldiers don't question the order or seem bothered by what happened. They all just stand there like shooting civilians is normal procedure. The aftermath shows how violence spreads through communities like poison. Nojiko's injury doesn't just hurt her. It destroys Nami's faith in everything good and pushes an entire village toward a hopeless war. One bullet fired by a corrupt cop changes the lives of hundreds of people forever. The scene also highlights the difference between pirates and Marines in this world. Most pirates are honest about being criminals, but Marines like Nezumi pretend to be heroes while doing worse things than any pirate crew. At least when pirates rob you, they don't claim it's for justice. Nami's reaction to seeing her sister shot is raw and realistic. She screams in helpless rage because someone she loves got hurt, and there's nothing she can do about it. That's what real trauma looks like. The shooting scene works because it feels completely hopeless. There's no last-minute save, no clever plan, no happy ending. Just a desperate woman watching her world burn while corrupt officials steal everything she worked for. It's pure nightmare fuel that stays with you long after the episode ends. This moment sets up everything that follows in the arc. When Luffy finally shows up to fight Arlong, he's taking on an entire system of corruption that has been crushing innocent people for years. The stakes feel personal and real because we've seen exactly what this system does to families. Nezumi's betrayal crushes Nami's hope, but things turn even darker when Arlong traps Luffy underwater to drown. Episode 38 of One Piece, titled Luffy in Big Trouble. Fishman Arlong's fierce assault from Season 1 shows one of the most terrifying scenes in early One Piece. Arlong throws Luffy into a pool to drown, while his feet are trapped in concrete blocks. It's basically a buried-alive situation underwater, and watching Luffy sink helplessly to the bottom is pure nightmare fuel. The Straw Hats finally make it to Arlong Park ready for war. Luffy's had enough of watching Nami suffer, and he's here to kick ass. The place is this massive fortress filled with fishmen who think they're better than humans. Arlong sits on his throne like some twisted king, surrounded by his officers, who've been terrorizing villages for years. Luffy doesn't waste time with speeches or threats. He walks right up to Arlong and punches him square in the face without saying a word. That's when all hell breaks loose. Hatchin, the octopus fishman, recognizes Zoro as the guy who escaped their prison earlier. They also realize Usopp is still alive, which means Nami has been lying to them all along. The fishmen call in their secret weapon, Momu, this giant sea cow that's basically their pet monster. But Luffy grabs the thing and uses it like a massive club, spinning around and knocking out most of Arlong's crew in one move. It's an incredible display of strength that leaves everyone's jaws on the floor. But here's where things go horribly wrong. Luffy's spinning attack drives his feet deep into the concrete floor of Arlong Park. He's completely stuck, like someone buried him up to his ankles in cement. Arlong sees this and gets this sick smile on his face because he knows exactly what to do with a helpless devil fruit user. Arlong grabs the chunk of concrete with Luffy's feet still trapped inside and lifts the whole thing over his head. Luffy tries to punch him, but Arlong catches his fist with his teeth, those razor-sharp shark teeth that can bite through steel. Then he does the most evil thing possible. He throws Luffy and the concrete block straight into the pool. Luffy hits the water and immediately starts sinking like a stone. The concrete acts like an anchor, dragging him down to the bottom where he can't move or escape. Devil fruit users can't swim anyway, but this is way worse than just drowning. He's pinned to the seabed, completely helpless, watching his air bubbles float away while he slowly suffocates. The scene is absolutely horrifying because there's nothing Luffy can do. He can't break the concrete, can't swim to the surface, can't even move properly. He's just trapped underwater, staring up at the surface while his lungs burn for air. It's like being buried alive, except you're drowning at the same time. Arlong stands at the edge of the pool, laughing about his game. He tells Zoro and Sanji that they can save Luffy, but only if they beat his officers first. The problem is, if they jump in the water to help, the fishmen will have a huge advantage since they can breathe underwater. It's a perfect trap, designed to torture everyone. Sanji desperately wants to dive in and save his captain, but Zoro holds him back. They both know it's a setup, but watching Luffy slowly drown is tearing them apart. You can see the panic in their eyes as they realize their friend might actually die down there. The villagers watching from outside the gates are shocked and silent. They came here expecting a fight, not to watch their potential savior get murdered in such a cruel way. Some of them probably think the Straw Hats are already finished before the real battle even started. This drowning scene works because it plays on everyone's worst fears. Drowning is already terrifying, but being trapped underwater with no way to escape makes it 10 times worse. Luffy can see the surface, can see his friends trying to help, but he's completely powerless to save himself. Arlong's cruelty shows through in how much he enjoys this moment. He wants to torture him and make his friends watch. It's psychological warfare designed to break everyone's spirit before they even start fighting. The concrete blocks around Luffy's feet become like a death sentence. What started as an accident from his own attack becomes the perfect weapon for his enemy to use against him. Sometimes your greatest strength can become your biggest weakness in the wrong situation. This scene also shows how dangerous the ocean is for devil fruit users. Most of the time, Luffy's rubber powers make him nearly invincible on land, but in water, he becomes completely helpless, weaker than a normal person. The ocean doesn't care how strong you are. It will kill you just the same. The image of Luffy trapped underwater stays with you long after the episode ends. His wide eyes staring up at the surface, his body slowly going limp as the oxygen runs out, the concrete keeping him pinned like a gravestone. It's one of the darkest moments in early One Piece. What makes this torture even worse is that Luffy brought it on himself. His own attack got him stuck in the concrete, and now, that concrete is drowning him. There's something poetic and horrible about being killed by the consequences of your own strength. The drowning scene also raises the stakes for everyone else. If the strongest member of their crew can be taken out this easily, what hope do the rest of them have? It's a reality check that shows how dangerous their enemies really are. Arlong's game reveals his twisted personality perfectly. He could have just killed Luffy quickly, but instead he creates this elaborate torture scenario where everyone has to watch their friend die slowly. It's the kind of cruelty that makes you hate him. On a personal level, the underwater prison becomes a race against time. How long can Luffy hold his breath? How long before his lungs give out and he drowns for real? Every second that passes makes the situation more desperate and hopeless. Luffy's drowning shows Arlong's cruelty, but the horror continues, with Dr. Hiruluck's fake medicine turning patients into monsters. But before I tell you about that, subscribe to our channel, episode 85 of One Piece, titled Dreams of the Outcasts. The Quack Dr. Hiruluck from Season 3 shows one of the most disturbing medical scenes in anime. Dr. Hiruluck's experimental treatments cause horrifying body transformations that are absolutely nightmare fuel. Watching patients turn into croaking, hopping green creatures shows just how dangerous good intentions can be without proper knowledge. Drum Island is ruled by the tyrant King Wapol, who basically outlawed all doctors except for his personal team of 20. This leaves everyone without medical care when they get sick. 2 rogue doctors are still operating illegally, the skilled Dr. Kureha and the completely useless Dr. Hiruluck. While Kureha actually knows what she's doing, Hiruluck is a dangerous fake whose treatments often make people way worse. Hiruluck used to be a thief with a deadly illness who thought he got cured by seeing cherry blossoms. This gave him the stupid idea that he could cure anyone's sickness through positive thinking and weird experimental medicine. The problem is, he has 0 medical training, and his treatments are basically torture disguised as healing. The most messed up scene shows Hiruluck forcing his way into a sick man's house. The patient and his wife are scared because they know Hiruluck's reputation for making people worse. They beg him to leave, but he refuses and pulls out a syringe filled with Frog X, some nasty medicine made from frog parts that he created in his crappy lab. Hiruluck holds the struggling patient down and sticks him with the experimental drug. Within seconds, the man's skin turns bright green and he starts croaking like a frog. His body movements become weird and jerky as he begins hopping around the room like an animal. The transformation is so gross that he literally hops out the window to escape, still croaking and moving like a frog. The patient's wife screams as she watches her husband get turned into some kind of human frog thing. The whole scene is scary because Hiruluck genuinely thinks he's helping. He has this proud smile on his face like he just did something amazing, completely clueless about the body horror he just inflicted on this poor guy. What makes this even more disturbing is that Hiruluck has been doing this crap for years. He's left a trail of victims across Drum Island who've been transformed or poisoned by his experimental treatments. People run when they see him coming because they know he'll force his cures on them whether they want it or not. The episode shows several other examples of Hiruluck's medical disasters. Patients foam at the mouth, develop weird rashes, or suffer bizarre side effects that are worse than their original sickness. He treats every failure as a learning experience, never thinking that maybe he should stop experimenting on people. The body horror stuff works because it's so unexpected in a show like One Piece. You expect goofy comedy, not watching someone get injected with frog DNA and transformed into a croaking green monster. The difference between Hiruluck's good intentions and the horrible results makes every scene uncomfortable to watch. Hiruluck's victims become living warnings about the dangers of fake medicine. These people trusted him to heal them and ended up as gross experiments. Some probably died from his treatments, though the show doesn't show deaths because it's still for kids. The worst part is how Hiruluck refuses to accept that he's causing harm. When patients get worse or develop horrible side effects, he just claims they need more treatment. He's created this fantasy where any bad outcome is just part of the healing process. The contrast between Hiruluck and Dr. Kureha shows the difference between real medicine and dangerous fake treatments. Kureha actually saves lives while Hiroluk destroys them with his experimental junk. Yet the villagers fear both doctors equally because they can't tell the difference. This episode also shows how Hiroluk found Chopper after the reindeer got shot by villagers. Even his rescue of Chopper was scary. He pulled out a tranquilizer gun, which terrified the already wounded animal. Hiroluk's good heart doesn't make up for his complete lack of medical skills. Hiroluk's story serves as a dark lesson about medical ethics and the responsibility that comes with trying to heal people. His experimental treatments represent every medical horror story about doctors who care more about their own theories than patient safety. The body transformations caused by his medicines are genuinely disturbing because they rob people of their humanity. Turning someone into a croaking, hopping creature strips away their dignity and identity. It's basically medical torture disguised as healing. The episode's tone changes dramatically during these medical scenes. The usual One Piece humor disappears, replaced by real horror, as we watch Hiroluk force his experimental treatments on helpless patients. The animation makes the gross transformations as unsettling as possible. What makes Hiroluk even more dangerous is his complete confidence in his abilities. He never doubts himself or questions whether his methods are wrong. This arrogance leads him to keep experimenting on people, even when the results are obviously terrible. The frog transformation scene is particularly disturbing because it happens so fast. One moment the patient is human, the next, he's a croaking green creature hopping around in panic. There's no gradual change or warning, just instant body horror that completely changes Huhi Island. Hiroluk's lab is filled with other questionable experiments and strange concoctions. You can see jars of weird substances and failed attempts at medicine scattered everywhere. Each one probably represents another victim of his dangerous treatments. The episode shows how Hiroluk genuinely believes he's helping people, which makes his failures even more tragic. He's incredibly stupid and stubborn. His good intentions make the harm he causes feel even worse. Hiroluk's victims represent everyone who's ever been hurt by fake medicine or unqualified healers. Their transformations serve as visual metaphors for how bad medical treatment can completely change and destroy lives. The scene with the frog patient also shows how Hiroluk forces his treatments on unwilling victims. He holds people down and injects them with experimental drugs. It's medical assault disguised as healing. This backstory episode proves that One Piece isn't afraid to show the dark side of medicine and human experimentation. Hiroluk's treatments are basically medical torture, but the show presents them through misguided compassion rather than evil intent. The lasting impact of Hiroluk's medical disasters shapes Chopper's entire character development. Watching his father figure accidentally poison and transform patients teaches Chopper that good intentions aren't enough. You need real knowledge and skill to actually help people. The body horror scenes serve as motivation for Chopper to become a real doctor who can actually heal instead of harm. Every grotesque transformation caused by Hiroluk's treatments reminds Chopper of what happens when medicine goes wrong. Hiroluk's story also highlights the danger of letting unqualified people practice medicine. His lack of training and knowledge makes him a threat to everyone he tries to help, no matter how good his intentions might be. The frog transformation becomes a symbol of how Hiroluk's treatments dehumanize his patients. Instead of healing them, he turns them into something less than human through his experimental drugs and procedures. This episode works as both character backstory and social commentary about the importance of proper medical training and regulation. Hiroluk's disasters show why we need qualified doctors and why good intentions alone aren't enough to heal people. Hiroluk's fake cures already caused horror, but the true tragedy comes when he drinks poison and blows himself up. Episode 86 of One Piece, titled Hiroluk's Cherry Blossoms and Inherited Will from Season 3, contains one of the most heartbreaking suicide scenes in anime. Dr. Hiroluk drinks an explosive potion and blows himself up right in front of everyone, leaving behind only his hat and a traumatized Chopper. It's a devastating moment that shows how suicide destroys not just the person who dies, but everyone who loved them. Chopper has just discovered that the mushroom he gave Hiroluk was actually deadly poison. The poor reindeer thought he was helping his father figure get better, but instead, he accidentally poisoned the only person who ever showed him kindness. Dr. Kureha beats him and screams that there's no cure-all medicine, but the damage is already done. Chopper realizes he's killed his own dad. Meanwhile, Hiroluk has already eaten the poisonous mushroom soup that Chopper made for him. He knows he's going to die from the poison, but he also knows that King Wapol has set a trap for him at the castle. The evil king spread rumors that his royal doctors were sick, knowing Hiroluk would rush to help them despite the obvious danger. Hiroluk arrives at Wapol's castle carrying bombs and looking like he's ready for war. But when he gets inside, Wapol reveals the whole thing was a lie. The royal doctors are perfectly healthy. It was all just a setup to capture and execute the last free doctor on Drum Island. Wapol laughs at how easily he tricked the old fool. Instead of begging for mercy or trying to escape, Hiroluk pulls out a bottle filled with one of his failed experimental medicines. This particular potion is highly explosive, basically a liquid bomb that he created by accident. He looks directly at Wapol and starts giving a speech about dreams and death while pouring the deadly mixture into a cup. Hiroluk delivers his famous line about how a person only truly dies when they're forgotten, not when their heart stops beating. As he talks, Dalton starts crying because he realizes this crazy doctor is about to sacrifice himself for the country. Hiroluk notices the tears and smiles, knowing that someone finally understands what he was trying to do all along. With everyone watching in horror, Hiroluk drinks the explosive potion in one gulp. He thanks Chopper for everything and shouts that he's had a wonderful life. Then the explosion happens, a massive blast that completely destroys his body and shakes the entire castle. When the smoke clears, there's nothing left of him except his black hat floating slowly to the ground. Chopper arrives at the castle just in time to see his father figure's hat fall from the sky. The reindeer realizes he's too late to save Hiroluk, and that the man who rescued him from loneliness is gone forever. When Wapol starts laughing about the suicide, Chopper goes into a rage and tries to attack the king. Dalton has to physically restrain the grieving reindeer, telling him not to throw his life away too. But Chopper is completely broken. He's lost the only family he ever had, and it's partially his own fault because of the poisonous mushroom. The guilt and grief are eating him alive. The aftermath of Hiroluk's suicide is absolutely devastating. Chopper runs to Dr. Kureha's house carrying Hiroluk's pirate flag, begging her to teach him real medicine so he can become a doctor who actually saves people instead of killing them. He's determined to carry on Hiroluk's dream of healing the island's frozen hearts. This suicide scene hits so hard because Hiroluk chose to die on his own terms, rather than let his enemies kill him. He was already dying from the poisonous mushroom, but instead of suffering through a slow death, he went out in a blaze of glory while delivering an inspiring speech about never giving up on your dreams. The explosion itself is filmed in a way that emphasizes the violence and finality of suicide. There's no peaceful fade to black or gentle passing, just a massive blast that erases Hiroluk from existence. Only his hat remains as proof that he ever lived, floating down like a cherry blossom petal. Chopper's reaction to the suicide shows the real damage that these deaths cause to survivors. He's completely shattered, blaming himself for giving Hiroluk the poison and arriving too late to stop him. The guilt will haunt him for the rest of his life. What makes this suicide even more tragic is that Hiroluk could have lived longer if he had just stayed home. The poisonous mushroom wouldn't have killed him immediately, and maybe Dr. Kureha could have found a way to treat it. But his need to help others, even when it was obviously a trap, led him straight to his death. The scene also shows how Hiroluk's suicide inspired others to keep fighting. Dalton was moved to tears by the speech and later rebels against Wapol's tyranny. The royal doctors start working harder to help people instead of just serving the king. Even Chopper dedicates his life to becoming a real doctor. Hiroluk's final words about being forgotten become a recurring theme in One Piece. He believed that as long as people remembered his dream of healing the island, he would never truly die. But for Chopper, those words don't ease the pain of watching his father figure blow himself up. The hat floating to the ground becomes one of the most iconic images in One Piece. It represents everything Hiroluk stood for: his dreams, his kindness, his stubbornness, and his ultimate sacrifice. For Chopper, that hat is all he has left of the man who saved him. This episode proves that One Piece doesn't shy away from showing the brutal reality of suicide and its impact on loved ones. Hiroluk's death by explosion is violent and final, leaving behind only grief and the determination to carry on his legacy. The contrast between Hiroluk's inspirational final speech and the horrific way he dies creates a complex emotional response. You're inspired by his words but devastated by his method. It's a suicide that serves a greater purpose but still destroys everyone who cared about him. Chopper's journey from this point forward is shaped entirely by Hiroluk's suicide. Every patient he saves, every medical technique he learns, every life he touches, it's all because he watched his father figure drink poison and explode rather than live to see another day. The episode ends with the present-day Chopper still carrying the trauma of that moment. When he talks about becoming a doctor, you can hear the pain in his voice. Hiroluk's suicide gave him purpose, but it also gave him scars that will never fully heal. This scene remains one of the most emotionally devastating moments in One Piece because it shows how even heroic sacrifices can be deeply traumatic for the people left behind. Hiroluk died believing his death would inspire others, but Chopper just wanted his dad to stay alive. Hiroluk's suicide breaks Chopper, but the pain turns darker when Aokiji freezes Robin and revives her trauma. Episode 227 of One Piece, titled Navy Headquarters Admiral Aokiji, The Ferocity of an Ultimate Power User, from Season 7, shows one of the most terrifying displays of marine power in the series. Admiral Aokiji completely freezes Robin's body in a bear hug, nearly killing her and forcing all her childhood trauma to come flooding back. It's a brutal reminder that the world government will never stop hunting her. The Straw Hats encounter Aokiji on a random island, where he's just lazily helping some shipwrecked people. At first, he seems harmless. This tall, sleepy guy riding a bicycle across the ocean who calls himself a follower of lazy justice. But the moment Robin sees him, she completely panics. She recognizes him as one of the 3 Marine Admirals, the world government's most powerful weapons. Aokiji casually mentions that he's been tracking Robin since the Alabasta incident. He tells the crew their total bounty just jumped from 160 million to 239 million berries because of Robin's 79 million bounty. Then he starts talking about Robin's past. calling her a traitor who survives by using people as tools and abandoning them when they're no longer useful. The crew defends Robin, saying they don't care about her past because she's their friend now. But Aokiji keeps pushing, asking if the Straw Hats are just her next group of victims. He tells them that every organization Robin has ever joined gets completely destroyed, with only her surviving. It's psychological warfare designed to make them doubt her loyalty. Robin finally snaps and uses her devil fruit powers to grab Aokiji with multiple arms, trying to break his body with her train to fleur technique. For a moment, it looks like she succeeded. Aokiji's body shatters like ice, but then the pieces reform back into his human shape, revealing that he's a Logia devil fruit user who can become ice itself. Aokiji calmly creates an ice sword from frozen grass and swings it at Robin. Zoro blocks the attack while Sanji kicks the sword away, and Luffy charges in for a punch. But Aokiji is way too powerful for them. He grabs Zoro's arm and Sanji's leg, then freezes his own body, causing ice to spread over their limbs when Luffy's punch connects. With 3 of the strongest Straw Hats disabled by frostbite, Aokiji turns his attention back to Robin. He tells her that even though she found some good friends, she's still the same person inside. Robin tries to argue that she's changed, that she's not the lonely child who betrayed people to survive anymore. But before she can finish speaking, Aokiji grabs her in a bear hug and activates his ice powers. The cold spreads through his body and into Robin's, completely freezing her solid in seconds. Her skin turns white, her eyes become lifeless, and ice crystals form all over her body. The crew watches in absolute horror as their friend becomes a frozen statue. The sight of Robin's frozen body triggers flashbacks to her childhood trauma on Ohara. 20 years ago, she watched her entire island get destroyed by the world government, with everyone she loved either killed or frozen to death by this same man. Being frozen brings back all those memories of helplessness and terror. Aokiji tries to shatter Robin's frozen body by stepping on her, but Luffy slides her away just in time. The crew rushes her back to the ship, where they desperately try to thaw her in the shower. Chopper is terrified that even if they melt the ice, Robin might be dead from the freezing damage to her organs. The psychological impact of being frozen alive is devastating for Robin. She spent 20 years running from the world government, always looking over her shoulder, never truly feeling safe. Getting frozen by Aokiji proves that no matter how far she runs or how many friends she makes, the Marines will always find her. This scene works because it shows the massive power gap between the Straw Hats and the world government. 3 of their strongest fighters get taken out like they're nothing, and Robin nearly dies from a casual bear hug. It's a reality check that they're still small fish in a very big ocean. The freezing also represents Robin's emotional state. She's been frozen in fear and trauma for most of her life, unable to truly connect with people because she knows she'll have to abandon them eventually. Aokiji, literally turning her into ice, is a physical manifestation of her psychological damage. What makes this even more cruel is how Aokiji talks to Robin while freezing her. He's completely calm and matter-of-fact about potentially killing her. It's just another day at the office for him, eliminating a threat to the world government. The bear hug itself is a twisted mockery of affection. Instead of warmth and comfort, Aokiji's embrace brings only cold death. It's the opposite of everything Robin has been learning about friendship and trust with the Straw Hats. Robin's frozen body becomes a symbol of how the world government views her. Not as a human being with feelings and dreams, but as an object to be eliminated. The ice strips away her humanity, turning her into a lifeless statue that can be easily destroyed. The crew's desperate attempts to save her show how much they truly care about Robin. They risk their lives fighting an admiral and rush to thaw her body, even though they don't know if she'll survive. It's the first time Robin has ever had people willing to die for her. This episode marks a turning point in Robin's character development. She realizes that running away and hiding hasn't protected anyone, it just delayed the inevitable confrontation with her past. The freezing forces her to confront the trauma she's been avoiding for 20 years. Aokiji's ice powers make him the perfect opponent for Robin psychologically. Ice represents everything she fears: coldness, isolation, death, and the inability to move or escape. Being frozen is like being trapped in her worst nightmare made real. The near-death experience also strengthens Robin's bond with the Straw Hats. She sees how much they're willing to sacrifice for her, even after learning about her dark past. Their loyalty helps her start believing that maybe she deserves to have friends after all. This scene sets up the entire Water 7 and Enies Lobby storyline. Robin's trauma from being frozen makes her more paranoid about putting her friends in danger. When CP9 threatens the crew later, she remembers how helpless she felt as a frozen statue and decides to sacrifice herself to protect them. The episode shows that the world government's greatest weapon is their ability to make people feel hopeless and alone. Aokiji doesn't just freeze Robin's body. He tries to freeze her spirit by making her believe she's doomed to hurt everyone she cares about. Aokiji freezing Robin shows marine cruelty, but things get darker when Hogback's lab reveals stitched-up corpses turned into zombies. But before we continue the video, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Episode 342 of One Piece, titled Mystery of the Zombies, Hogback's nightmarish research laboratory from Season 10, shows some of the most messed up stuff in the whole series. Dr. Hogback's lab is full of dead bodies that have been cut up and sewn back together like some sick puzzle. It's straight-up horror movie material that will give you nightmares. The Straw Hats landed on Thriller Bark, which is basically a floating haunted house run by one of the 7 warlords. This place is designed to scare the crap out of everyone who sets foot on it. The whole thing is crawling with zombies and monsters, but nobody knows how bad it really is until they find the source. Nami, Chopper, and Usopp get trapped in this creepy mansion while trying to run away from zombies. Every door they try is locked, so they keep getting pushed deeper into the nightmare. They start noticing something really weird. Every single creature they've seen has bandages, stitches, and numbers tattooed on their skin like they're products in some factory. When they stumble into Hogback's laboratory, they see the most disgusting thing imaginable. This guy, who used to be a famous doctor, is now playing with dead bodies like they're toys. The lab is packed with corpses that have been chopped up and put back together wrong. Arms sewn onto different bodies, heads attached to the wrong necks, legs stitched on backwards. It's absolutely sick. Hogback is standing over his latest creation, laughing like a maniac while he admires what he's done. The zombie on his table has thick stitch marks all over where different body parts have been sewn together. There's a number tattooed on its arm like it's cattle being marked for slaughter. The worst part is how happy Hogback looks about the whole thing. He treats these dead people like they're just spare parts for his hobby. These were real humans, with families who loved them, but to him, they're just materials to cut up and rearrange however he wants. Sindri is there too, his zombie servant, who used to be a famous actress. She's supposed to be his masterpiece, I knows, someone he brought back from the dead because he was obsessed with her. But even she seems disturbed by what's happening, hoping his experiments will fail. The soup she's carrying spills on the floor, showing how wrong everything island. You can see multiple zombies around the lab with completely mismatched body parts. Arms that obviously came from different people. Heads that don't fit the bodies they're attached to. Limbs grafted on at weird angles that make the zombies walk funny. It's like someone took a bunch of action figures, broke them apart, and glued them back together wrong. The numbering system makes it even more horrible. Each zombie gets a number burned into their skin like their inventory in a warehouse. These are just things in Hogback's sick collection of undead monsters. What makes this so disturbing is that Hogback used to save lives as a doctor. Now he's cutting up corpses and turning them into freaks for his own entertainment. It's the complete opposite of everything doctors are supposed to stand for. The stitching work looks deliberately rough and ugly. You can see exactly where each body part was cut and reattached because the seams are thick and messy. It's like someone took a sewing machine to human flesh without caring what the final result looked like. Robin figures out that everything on the island has these same markings. Bandages, stitches, numbers. Hogback has been mass-producing zombies from dead bodies for years. The entire island is basically his personal graveyard and assembly line combined. The episode doesn't try to hide any of the gross details. You get close-up shots of the stitch marks, the wrong body parts stuck together, and the unnatural way these zombies move because nothing fits right. Their arms are too long or too short. Their heads are the wrong size. Their legs don't match. This laboratory scene completely changes the mood of One Piece. Before this, the show mostly stayed away from real horror stuff. But Thriller Bark goes full scary movie with zombies, chopped up corpses, and mad scientist experiments that belong in a horror film. The psychological impact hits the characters hard. Chopper gets especially upset because he's a doctor too, and seeing his profession twisted into something so evil really messes with his head. The idea that someone could promise to help people and then do this to human bodies is nightmare fuel. Hogback's insane laughter fills the lab as he looks at his work, completely clueless about how sick and twisted his experiments are. He's lost all sense of right and wrong, and thinks there's nothing strange about turning dead bodies into his personal toys. The episode shows that there's a whole system behind creating zombies. Bodies get collected, cut apart, mixed with other parts, numbered, and filed away like products. It's factory-scale corpse abuse disguised as science. The visual design makes sure you never forget these zombies are fake. The stitching is always visible, the body parts never match properly, and the numbers are stamped on them like barcodes. You also see the tools Hogback uses scattered around the lab: bloody scalpels, bone saws, needles for stitching, and restraints for holding bodies down while he works on them. The whole place looks like a butcher shop, mixed with an operating room. The episode works because it violates something most people feel strongly about: respect for the dead. Almost every culture has rules about not messing with corpses, and watching someone treat them like spare car parts triggers a deep disgust that makes the horror feel real. Some of the zombies are missing parts entirely, showing that Hogback doesn't care if his creations are complete. One might be missing an eye, another has no fingers, and some have chunks of flesh just gone. He uses whatever parts he can find and doesn't worry about the rest. The smell in the lab must be horrible too, though the anime can't show that. Rotting flesh, chemical preservatives, and the stench of death would make the place unbearable for normal people. but Hogback has been doing this so long he probably doesn't even notice anymore. The chopped up corpses and evil doctor experiments create a feeling of dread that makes Thriller Bark completely different from every other part of the series. It's genuinely scary in a way that most anime never attempts. Hogback's lab shows horror with stitched up corpses, but things get darker when Perona's ghosts break the crew's minds. Episode 356 of One Piece, titled Usopp the Strongest? Leave the Negatives to Me from Season 10, shows one of the most messed up attacks in the whole series. Perona's negative ghosts mess with people's heads and make them want to give up on everything. It's scary because it attacks your mind instead of your body. The Straw Hats are split up inside Thriller Bark, trying to get their shadows back and escape this creepy island. They've been fighting zombies and monsters, but those enemies are nothing compared to what's coming next. Perona, one of Gecko Moria's main bad guys, has been watching them and getting mad that they keep ruining her boss's plans. Zoro's group ends up in Perona's room, which looks like a little kid's bedroom but is full of floating ghosts. These are weapons that break people's spirits. Perona sits there looking all innocent, but she's actually super dangerous because her power attacks something you can't fight back against. When Perona's negative ghosts pass through Zoro, Sanji, and Frankie, something horrible happens right away. These tough guys who never give up suddenly drop to their knees with empty, dead-looking eyes. They start saying stuff like, "I want to die," and "I'm worthless," in flat voices that don't sound like them at all. The ghosts don't hurt their bodies, but they fill their heads with terrible thoughts about themselves. Zoro, who's usually super confident, suddenly thinks he's completely useless. Sanji starts talking about how he doesn't deserve to be alive. Frankie loses all his energy and becomes like an empty shell of himself. Their faces change completely. Their eyes go blank, like all the hope got sucked out of them. They just sit there defeated, not even trying to fight or run away. The ghosts convince them that everything is pointless and they should just give up. The negative ghosts create real thoughts about wanting to stop existing because they think their lives don't matter. The victims actually want to disappear because they're convinced they're worthless. Perona laughs while watching her enemies destroy themselves mentally. She doesn't need swords or guns, because her ghosts do something worse. They make people not want to fight anymore. It's like torture, but for your brain instead of your body. The scariest part is how the victims know what's happening, but can't stop it. They realize the thoughts aren't really theirs, but the bad feelings seem completely real. Their brains are telling them to quit, even when part of them wants to keep going. Usopp doesn't get affected by the attack, but not because he's brave or anything. He's already so negative about himself that the ghosts can't make him feel worse than he already does. His low self-confidence actually protects him from Perona's power, which is both funny and kind of sad. When Usopp helps his friends snap out of their negative states, you can see how shaken up they are. They look confused and scared, like they just woke up from a nightmare. The ghosts didn't hurt their bodies, but they messed with their minds in a way that regular attacks never could. This episode shows a type of fighting that most anime stays away from, attacks that target mental health. Instead of punching or shooting people, Perona's power makes them want to hurt themselves. It's a kind of warfare that feels more real and disturbing than typical fantasy battles. The negative ghosts are like depression and bad thoughts made into actual monsters. People who've dealt with mental health stuff might recognize the feeling of having your own brain turn against you and tell you that you're no good. What makes this attack so evil is that it uses people's own thoughts against them. The ghosts don't tell them they're worthless. They make them believe it themselves. The bad feelings come from inside their own heads, so it feels completely real and true. The way the ghosts look makes it even more disturbing. They're cute and innocent looking, which is the opposite of the psychological damage they cause. It's like being attacked by something that looks harmless, but destroys you from the inside. Perona's room is full of stuffed animals and pink decorations, making the whole scene even more messed up. This little girl's bedroom is actually a place where people's minds get broken. The cute appearance hides something really evil. The episode works because it shows that some kinds of violence are worse than physical pain. Getting punched hurts your body, but having your mind filled with terrible thoughts hurts your soul. Perona's power is scarier than any weapon because it attacks something deeper. This scene also shows how mental health struggles can feel like being attacked by an invisible enemy. The people hit by Perona's ghosts experience what many people with depression go through, thoughts telling them they're worthless and life isn't worth living. The fact that Usopp's existing negativity protects him adds dark humor, but it also suggests that people who've already dealt with these feelings might handle them better. Sometimes, going through mental health struggles can build a weird kind of resistance. When the crew recovers from the ghost attack, they're more shaken up than after any physical fight. You can see in their faces that something important was violated. Having your own mind turned against you leaves invisible scars. The ghosts move in this creepy way, floating around the room like they're looking for victims. When they pass through someone, there's this moment where the person's expression completely changes. You can literally see the hope drain from their eyes. Perona controls the ghosts like they're pets, sending them after specific targets. She seems to enjoy watching people break down mentally, which makes her way more evil than someone who just fights with weapons. She gets pleasure from psychological suffering. The room itself becomes like a trap where people's minds get attacked. All the cute decorations decorations and toys create this false sense of safety before the mental assault begins. It's like a spider's web designed to catch people's thoughts instead of their bodies. When Usopp fights back, he has to use regular weapons because you can't punch thoughts or shoot feelings. The contrast between physical fighting and mental attacks becomes really clear. Some enemies you fight with your fists, others you fight with your mind. The episode shows that being mentally tough isn't the same as being physically strong. Zoro can cut through almost anything, but he can't slice away bad thoughts. Sanji can kick down walls, but he can't kick away despair. Mental attacks require different kinds of strength. After the ghost attack, the crew moves more carefully through Thriller Bark. They realize there are enemies here who can hurt them in ways they never expected. The psychological damage lingers even after they escape Perona's room. Perona's ghosts show how fragile the mind can be, but the darkness grows worse when Sabaody reveals the cruelty of slavery, and Camille is dragged to an auction block. So here we are with episode 394 titled Rescue Camille, the archipelago's lingering dark history, where One Piece decides to show us something really messed up. This episode basically takes everything fun about the series and throws it out the window to show you one of the worst things humans can do to each other, buying and selling people like they're objects at a garage sale. Sabaody Archipelago seemed pretty cool at first, with all its bubbles and fun stuff, but now we're seeing the ugly truth. This place has been running a slave market for centuries, and nobody seems to think there's anything wrong with it. Fishmen and mermaids get treated like animals that can be caught and sold to rich people who want exotic pets. Camille gets kidnapped by some scumbag slave traders who drag her to this auction house where they plan to sell her off. The place operates like a normal business. They have professional staff, fancy customers, and everything runs smooth as butter. Nobody's hiding what they're doing because apparently slavery is totally legal and acceptable here. They take Camille backstage where all the other products are waiting to be sold. She's scared out of her mind as these jerks try to put an explosive collar around her neck. This thing is designed to blow her head off if she tries to escape, so even thinking about running away could kill her. The auction house staff treat Camille like garbage. When she looks scared, this guy Disco slaps her face and tells her to look prettier for the customers. To him, she's just merchandise that needs to look good for sale. Her feelings don't matter because she's not considered a real person. Robin explains to Nami that fishmen have been getting screwed over for hundreds of years. People used to classify them as just fish instead of intelligent beings. Even though the world government officially changed that, most humans still see them as inferior creatures that can be bought and sold. The really sick part is how casual everyone acts about this whole thing. The celestial dragons show up complaining that one of their buddies is late, like they're going to see a movie instead of buying human beings. The auction house workers go about their jobs like they're setting up any other event. Papag starts blaming himself for letting Camille come to this island. He says fishmen and mermaids shouldn't even be here because every human on the island sees them as potential property. It's like walking into a place where everyone wants to kidnap you and nobody will help. You can see other slaves backstage sitting in cages, all looking terrified as they wait for their turn to be sold. Some have already given up hope and just sit there with empty eyes. The whole system is designed to break people's spirits before they even get to the auction block. Even pirates think this stuff is evil. Eustace Kid watches the celestial dragons walk in and says that compared to them, regular criminals seem more honorable. When actual pirates are calling you dishonorable, you know you've really hit rock bottom. The explosive collars are the perfect example of how this slavery system works. They mess with their heads too. The victims can't even dream about escaping because they know it means instant death. It's mind control through terror. Silver's Rayleigh is also there as a slave, which shows that this system doesn't just target weak people. Even legendary fighters can end up as merchandise if they get caught. The slave trade doesn't care how strong or famous you are. If you can be captured, you can be sold. This episode shows how evil stuff gets normalized when society accepts it. People don't think slavery is wrong because they've been taught that certain groups aren't really human. Once you convince people that some beings are lesser, it becomes easy to treat them like property. The auction house looks like a fancy theater or concert hall, not some sketchy underground operation. This is high-class entertainment for wealthy people who want to buy exotic slaves. The rich don't get their hands dirty with the kidnapping, they just show up to shop. Camille knows exactly what's going to happen to her. She'll be sold to someone who sees her as a toy or pet. Her new owner might be cruel or kind, but either way, she'll never be free again. The collar makes sure she can never run away or fight back. Fishmen have to disguise themselves just to walk around tourist areas without getting attacked. It's like being hunted animals in what should be a safe place. The discrimination runs so deep that nowhere is really safe for them. The casual cruelty of the staff shows how slavery makes everyone involved more evil. These people have convinced themselves that their victims aren't really human, so they don't feel bad about hurting them. It's easier to be cruel when you don't see your victims as equals. Famous pirates like Law and Kid sitting in the audience shows how accepted this practice island. Even people who live outside the law come to these events like they're normal entertainment. The whole world has become okay with this sick system. The backstage area is basically a warehouse for human beings. People are stored in cages like animals waiting to be shipped out. The temperature is probably controlled to keep the merchandise in good condition, not for the comfort of the slaves themselves. Hachin feels guilty for bringing his friends to this dangerous place. He knows that fishmen aren't welcome here, but he wanted to help the Straw Hats anyway. Now, his decision has put Kami in terrible danger, and he blames himself for not thinking it through. The episode shows how prejudice gets passed down through generations. Kids grow up learning that fishmen are inferior, so by the time they're adults, treating them badly seems natural. Breaking this cycle requires changing how entire societies think about race and humanity. Duval and his crew are searching everywhere for Kami, but they're looking for a needle in a haystack. The slave trade has networks and hiding spots all over the island. Once someone gets grabbed, finding them becomes almost impossible without inside information. The world government's role in all this makes it even more disgusting. They claim to protect people, but they allow slavery to continue because it benefits the rich and powerful. Justice means nothing when money and status matter more than human rights. Peterman, the guy who captured Kami, acts like he just made a great business deal. He's proud of catching such a valuable slave and expects to be rewarded for his work. To him, kidnapping and trafficking people is just another way to make money. The other slaves in the backstage area represent countless victims who never get rescued. For every Kami that gets saved, dozens of others disappear into slavery forever. The system is so big and well established that most victims never escape. This scene works because it forces you to confront how societies can make evil seem normal. The slave auction represents everything wrong with treating some people as more valuable than others. It's holding up a mirror to real injustices that still happen today, making viewers uncomfortable in all the right ways. The slave auction at Sabaody shows normalized evil, but things get worse when Impel Down reveals prisoners being tortured and eaten alive. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to subscribe. Alright, so episode 422, titled A Life-Threatening Break-In, The Underwater Prison Impel Down, really doesn't mess around when it comes to showing you how dark this series can get. We're diving straight into one of the most brutal prison scenes you'll ever see in anime, and it's not pretty. Impel Down is this massive underwater prison that's supposed to hold the worst criminals in the world. But calling it a prison is way too nice. This place is basically a torture factory where people go to suffer until they die. The world government built this nightmare specifically to break people's minds and bodies. So there are these two prisoners who get into a fight over something stupid. One guy refuses to take orders from another prisoner, and things get heated quickly. In any normal prison, guards would break it up, maybe throw them in isolation for a few days. But Impel Down doesn't do normal anything. That's when Minotaurus shows up. This thing is absolutely terrifying. Imagine a huge bull-headed monster that walks on two legs and has the intelligence to follow orders. The prisoners probably think they're about to get beaten up or move to a worse cell. They have no clue what's really coming. Minotaurus grabs both fighting prisoners and drags them away to a different cell. Instead of just punishing them or locking them up, this monster does something way worse. He starts eating them while they're still alive and screaming. The sound of their screams echoes through the entire prison. Every other prisoner can hear exactly what's happening. The sounds of flesh being torn, bones being crunched, desperate cries for help that nobody will answer. It's not a quick death either. These guys are fully conscious as they get consumed piece by piece. What makes this whole scene so messed up is how the guards react, which is to say, they don't react at all. To them, watching prisoners get eaten alive is just part of the job. They've seen it so many times that this level of violence has become routine office work. The other prisoners huddle in their cells knowing that any one of them could be next. Some are probably getting sick from the sounds alone. Others might be having mental breakdowns from the trauma of listening to fellow humans get devoured like snacks. Minotaurus is eating these people because he wants to show control and terror. The message is crystal clear. Step out of line, and you become someone's dinner. It's the ultimate psychological warfare. The episode shows how Impel Down operates on pure fear. Prisoners worry about getting eaten. There's something primal about the fear of being consumed that goes way deeper than regular violence. It taps into nightmares that humans have had since ancient times. You can see the terror in other prisoners' eyes as they realize what kind of place they're really in. This is about making people suffer in the worst ways possible before they die. The guards who work here have completely lost their humanity. They watch people get eaten alive and feel nothing. Some probably even enjoy the show. Working in a place like this changes you into something that isn't quite human anymore. Minotaurus looks like a monster, but the real monsters are the people who created this system. The world government designed this whole operation specifically to maximize suffering. They want prisoners to experience the worst possible deaths. The casual brutality of the scene is what makes it so disturbing. Nobody acts like anything unusual is happening. Prisoners getting devoured is just another Tuesday at Impel Down. The normalization of extreme violence shows how far these people have fallen. The screams of the dying prisoners become part of the prison soundtrack. New inmates hear those sounds on their first day and immediately understand that normal rules don't apply here. This place operates by its own twisted logic. Other prisoners start changing their behavior immediately after witnessing this. They become more submissive, more fearful, more willing to do whatever it takes to avoid becoming Minotaurus's next meal. The psychological impact spreads through the entire facility. The episode forces you to confront what real torture looks like. Most shows hint at violence or cut away before things get too graphic. One Piece doesn't pull any punches. It shows you exactly what happens when people decide that some lives don't matter. The whole system is designed to break people before they die. It's not enough to just execute criminals. They have to suffer first. The world government wants everyone to know that opposing them leads to the most horrible fate imaginable. Watching this scene makes you realize that the line between heroes and villains gets really blurry. The world government claims to represent justice, but they're running torture facilities where people get eaten alive for entertainment. How is that different from what pirates do? The guards probably started out as normal people who thought they were serving justice, but working in a place like this corrupts everyone involved. When feeding people to monsters becomes part of your daily routine, you've lost all connection to basic human decency. Minotaurus becomes a symbol of how the prison system dehumanizes everyone. Prisoners are just meat that walks around until someone decides to eat it. The facility has turned human beings into livestock. The other jailer beasts probably do similar things to prisoners. Minotaurus eating people alive is just one example of the horrors that happen regularly in Impel Down. There are probably worse things happening on the lower levels that we don't even see. The episode shows how institutional violence spreads like a disease. Once you accept that eating prisoners is okay, where do you draw the line? Every guard in that place has become complicit in systematic torture. New prisoners who survive their first week probably develop serious mental health issues from the constant trauma. Living in a place where you might get eaten at any moment would drive most people crazy pretty quickly. The worst part is that this is the official world government policy. The people running the world have decided that extreme torture is not only acceptable, but necessary. They've institutionalized the worst aspects of human cruelty. The scene works because it strips away any pretense about the world government being the good guys. When you're feeding people to monsters, you've lost any moral authority you might have claimed. The mask comes off and reveals the true face of justice. Luffy and Hancock are sneaking into this nightmare while all this is happening. They have no idea what kind of horrors await them deeper in the prison. The eating scene serves as a warning of what this place is really about. The blood and gore from the feeding probably stains the cell floors permanently. New prisoners see those stains and immediately understand what happened there. The physical evidence of cannibalism becomes part of the prison's intimidation tactics. Buggy escaping from level 1 during all this chaos shows that even clowns have more humanity than the people running this place. A joke character is more sympathetic than the so-called forces of justice. The episode proves that One Piece isn't afraid to show the darkest sides of its world. Behind all the adventure and friendship, there are places where the worst aspects of human nature run wild. Impel Down represents everything wrong with unchecked authority and power. Impel Down shows prisoners eaten alive, but it gets worse when Akainu burns a helpless Luffy with magma fists. This episode is straight up brutal. Episode 487, titled Akainu's Tenacity. The Fist of Magma attacks Luffy shows Admiral Akainu being absolutely ruthless as he hunts down Luffy and Jinbei, nearly burning them both to death with his magma powers. It's one of those episodes that reminds you this isn't just a fun adventure story. The Marineford War is basically over at this point. Ace is dead, Whitebeard is dead, and the remaining pirates are trying to escape with their lives. Most of the fighting has stopped, but Akainu isn't done. This guy has turned into a one-man extermination squad, hunting down anyone trying to flee. Luffy is completely broken after watching Ace die right in front of him. The kid can barely move, let alone fight back. Jinbei is carrying him, trying to get them both out of this nightmare alive. But Akainu sees them and decides that letting them escape isn't an option. Akainu starts chasing them across the battlefield with pure killer intent. His magma fists are flying everywhere, turning the ground into molten rock. Every punch he throws could melt a person instantly. Jinbei is desperately trying to dodge while carrying Luffy, but you can see he's getting worn down fast. Then Akainu lands a direct hit on Jinbei. The magma burns straight through the fishman's body, and you can see the pain and damage it causes. Jinbei is tough as nails, but even he can't handle molten rock punching through his chest. Blood is everywhere as he tries to keep protecting Luffy, but Akainu isn't satisfied with just hurting Jinbei. He goes after Luffy next, hitting the unconscious kid with a magma punch that burns him badly. Luffy is already mentally destroyed from Ace's death, and now he's getting physically destroyed by molten rock. The burns are serious enough that he could die. The worst part is how personal Akainu makes it. He seems to enjoy hunting down these broken, fleeing pirates. There's something sick about chasing down an unconscious kid and trying to burn him alive. Jinbei keeps trying to protect Luffy even though he's badly injured himself. The fish man is bleeding from multiple magma burns, but he won't give up on saving his friend. It's heroic and heartbreaking at the same time. Other people start jumping in to help. Crocodile shows up. Some Whitebeard commanders try to interfere, but Akainu just keeps coming like some kind of Terminator. He's determined to kill Luffy no matter who gets in his way. The episode shows how ruthless the Marines can be when they want to eliminate someone. Akainu isn't interested in capturing prisoners or following any rules of war. He just wants to burn his enemies alive and be done with it. Buggy ends up catching Jinbei and Luffy when they get thrown around, but he has no idea what to do with two dying people. The clown is in way over his head, trying to figure out how to help while Akainu is still hunting them. That's when Trafalgar Law shows up and offers to help as a doctor. It's a lifeline for Luffy, who's unconscious and badly burned. Without medical treatment, the kid would probably die from his injuries. The whole scene works because it shows how helpless heroes can become. Luffy, who's usually unstoppable, is now a broken, unconscious kid getting carried around by others. He can't fight back or protect himself, he's completely vulnerable. Akainu represents the worst kind of authority figure, Ninth Self. Someone who uses their power to hunt down and torture people who can't fight back. He just wants to eliminate anyone who opposes the world government. The burns that Luffy suffers here stick with him for the rest of the series. They're permanent reminders of this horrible day when everything went wrong. Physical scars that match the emotional trauma of losing his brother. Jinbei's sacrifice in this episode shows what real friendship looks like. He's willing to die protecting someone he barely knows because it's the right thing to do. Even with magma burning through his body, he won't abandon Luffy. The episode proves that sometimes the good guys lose badly. Heroes get beaten, burned, and nearly killed while the villains walk away victorious. It's a harsh reality check that shows how dark this world can get. Akainu's relentless pursuit also shows how the war doesn't really end just because one side wins. Even after victory, some people keep fighting because they enjoy the violence. The Admiral could have let the survivors escape, but he chose to keep hunting them down. The medical emergency that Luffy faces here sets up his entire recovery arc. He's mentally shattered from trauma. It takes a long time for him to heal from both the burns and the psychological damage. This scene represents one of the lowest points in the entire series. The main character is unconscious, badly injured, and completely helpless while a powerful enemy hunts him down. It's as dark and hopeless as One Piece gets. The temperature of Akainu's magma attacks makes the injuries even more horrific. Regular fire burns are bad enough, but molten rock is thousands of degrees hotter. The damage it causes to human flesh is immediate and severe, creating wounds that might never heal properly. Kobe watches all this happening and starts questioning what justice really means. He sees Marines hunting down defeated enemies and wonders if this is what he signed up for. The kid is having a moral crisis, watching his own side act like monsters. Ivankov also gets caught up in Akainu's rampage, showing that the Admiral doesn't care who gets in his way. He'll burn through allies, enemies, or innocent bystanders to reach his target. There's no restraint or strategy, just pure destructive fury. The animation during the magma attacks is particularly intense. You can see the heat distorting the air around Akainu's fists, and the way his attacks leave glowing craters in the ground. The visual effects make it clear how deadly these powers really are. Jinbei's fishman physiology probably helps him survive injuries that would kill a regular human. But even with his natural toughness, the magma burns are life-threatening. His blue skin shows the damage clearly, with dark burn marks spreading across his body. The other Whitebeard commanders who try to help are clearly outmatched by Akainu's power. Vista, Marco, and the others are strong fighters, but none of them can really stand up to an admiral who's gone completely berserk. They're just buying time for others to escape. Law's submarine showing up at the end provides hope after all the darkness. The Heart Pirates represent a chance for survival when everything else looks hopeless. Law's medical skills might be the only thing that can save Luffy's life at this point. The episode also shows how war affects everyone differently. Some people like Sengoku try to restore order and end the fighting. Others like Akainu just want to keep killing until every enemy is dead. The contrast shows different philosophies about justice and victory. Akainu's obsession with eliminating Luffy specifically comes from knowing who his father Island Dragon's son represents everything the world government fears about the revolutionary movement. Killing Luffy is about preventing future threats. The damage done in this episode creates ripple effects that last for years in the story. Luffy's physical and mental recovery takes months, and the trauma changes how he approaches dangerous situations. He learns that sometimes the cost of fighting is too high. Akainu's magma almost kills Luffy and Jinbei, but the horror continues when Caesar Clown tortures kids with drugs and suffocation. So episode 600, titled Protect the Children, Master's Evil Hands Close In, gets really messed up really fast. We're dealing with Caesar Clown, this crazy scientist guy who's been doing horrible experiments on kids. It's some seriously dark stuff that shows how evil people can be. Punk Hazard is basically a nightmare island where Caesar has been running his sick research lab for years. This guy is supposed to be smart, but he's actually just a complete psychopath who loves hurting people. He's been kidnapping children and getting them hooked on drugs so he can use them as guinea pigs. The Straw Hats are trying to save these kids, but Caesar is hunting everyone down. Nami and Usopp are hiding with some of the children when Caesar shows up to grab his test subjects. These poor kids have been drugged and brainwashed for who knows how long. Caesar walks into the room and immediately starts attacking with his gas powers. But he doesn't just fight them normally. He starts removing all the oxygen from around Nami and Usopp's heads. They're basically suffocating while being completely awake and aware of what's happening to them. You can see the panic in their eyes as they realize they can't breathe. Their lungs are trying to work, but there's no air getting in. It's like drowning, except they can see everything around them. Caesar just stands there watching them slowly die, and you can tell he's enjoying it. The kids are going through crazy withdrawal symptoms from Caesar's drug candy. They're shaking and screaming and attacking anyone who gets near them because their bodies need the chemicals. One of them even tries to hurt Nami while she's being suffocated. Caesar tries to get the drugged kids to kill Nami and Usopp for him. He tells them they can have more candy if they crush the two straw hats with metal poles. He's basically trying to turn these child victims into murderers by using their addiction against them. The worst part is how casual Caesar acts about everything. Suffocating people and manipulating kids is just a normal day for him. He doesn't see any of them as real people. They're just things he can use for his experiments and entertainment. Brownbeard shows up trying to save everyone and demanding his crew back from Caesar's experiments. But Caesar just beats him down with this explosion attack that leaves him all burned up and hurt. Even when someone tries to help, Caesar destroys them. After dealing with Brownbeard, Caesar goes back to torturing Nami and Usopp. He hits them with another explosion attack that knocks them out cold. They end up unconscious on the floor, while Caesar takes all the kids away to his ship. The children follow Caesar like he's their savior, even after watching him hurt the people trying to protect them. They've been so messed up by the drugs and brainwashing that they can't think straight anymore. Their addiction makes them completely dependent on their abuser. Caesar sets up this broadcast to show off his weapons to criminal buyers all over the world. He's planning to use these same kids as test subjects for his poison gas demonstration. The children have no idea they're about to be murdered for a sales pitch. Pirates like Eustace Kid and Killer are watching the broadcast, interested in buying whatever Caesar is selling. They don't care that it was made by torturing kids, they just want something that can kill people better. The episode shows how child abuse really works. Caesar didn't just grab these kids yesterday, he spent months or years breaking them down mentally. He got them addicted to drugs, cut them off from anyone who might help, and made them think he was the only person who cared about them. The suffocation scenes are really brutal because there's nothing Nami and Usopp can do. They can see what's happening. They know they're dying, but they're completely helpless. Their own bodies are failing them as they run out of air. Caesar's experiments show what happens when smart people have no morals. He just wants to see how much pain he can cause. The kids are like lab rats to him, and he'll keep using them until they die. The drug addiction stuff hits hard because it shows how easy it is to control people once you get them hooked. Caesar turned these children into addicts who would do anything for their next fix, including hurting innocent people. The episode proves that some bad guys are evil just because they like making others suffer. Caesar doesn't have some big plan to take over the world. He just enjoys torturing people because he can, and nobody's strong enough to stop him. The whole system Caesar built is designed to break people's minds and bodies. This is carefully planned abuse meant to destroy everything good about his victims. He's created a whole facility just for human suffering. The broadcast part shows how evil spreads when people make money from it. Caesar is selling his torture methods to other criminals who will hurt even more people. The violence just keeps growing. This episode works because it doesn't try to make the horror seem less real by hiding behind fantasy stuff. Child abuse, drug addiction, and torture happen in our world too. One Piece is making viewers face these problems instead of pretending they don't exist. The most disturbing thing is that Caesar genuinely believes he's doing important work. In his mind, torturing children is justified because it advances his research. He's convinced himself that his victims don't really matter compared to his scientific goals. The children's reactions during the suffocation scene are particularly haunting. They're too drugged and confused to understand what's happening, but they can see that the people trying to protect them are in pain. Some of them even cheer when Caesar hurts Nami and Usopp because they think it means they'll get more candy. Caesar's gas powers make the torture even more horrifying because the victims can't fight back at all. When someone punches you, you can at least try to dodge or block, but when the air around your head just disappears, there's literally nothing you can do except slowly die. The way Caesar talks to the children throughout the episode is really creepy. He uses this fake cheerful voice like he's their friend, even while he's manipulating them into violence. He's mastered the art of making abuse seem like kindness, which is how real predators operate. Brownbeard's attempt to save everyone shows how Caesar has been lying to people for years. Brownbeard thought Caesar was helping his crew, but they were actually being used as test subjects too. The whole island is full of people who trusted Caesar and got betrayed. The explosion attacks Caesar uses are designed to cause maximum suffering. The gas component makes people choke and burn from the inside while the blast knocks them around. It's torture disguised as a fighting technique. When Caesar orders the children onto his ship, you can see how thoroughly he's broken them. them. They don't question his commands or ask where they're going. They just follow like zombies because their ability to think independently has been destroyed by drugs and abuse. The broadcast setup reveals the scope of Caesar's operation. He's connected to a whole network of criminals who buy and sell weapons of mass destruction. The system is much bigger and more organized than it first appears. The other pirates watching the broadcast represent how society enables this kind of evil. They know Caesar's weapons are probably tested on innocent people, but they don't care as long as they can benefit. Everyone becomes complicit when they choose profit over morality. The episode also shows how institutional power protects abusers. Caesar has government connections and official backing for his research, which makes it almost impossible for victims to get help. The system is designed to protect the predator, not the prey. Caesar's torture of kids is horrifying, but it gets even darker when laws passed shows the genocide of Flevants and sick children being killed. Episode 701, titled Sad Memories, Law, the Boy from the White City, shows us one of the most brutal stories in One Piece. We're talking about what happened to Law's hometown, where soldiers basically killed everyone, including sick kids and people in hospitals. It's really dark stuff. Flevants was this pretty white city where everyone seemed happy and rich. They found this special lead called amber lead underground that made cool products everyone wanted to buy. The world government helped them sell their stuff everywhere, and everyone was making tons of money. But there was a big secret nobody knew about. Law lived there with his family, his mom, dad, and little sister Lami. His dad was a doctor, and Law wanted to be one too. They were just a normal family having a good life. Lami was always bugging Law to stop studying and come play at festivals with her. Then people started getting really sick. White spots showed up on their skin, and they collapsed with terrible pain that doctors couldn't fix. Turns out the world government knew for 100 years that amber lead was poison, but they kept it secret because they were making so much money. The poison built up in people's bodies over time, making each generation live shorter lives. Law's generation was going to die young no matter what. When people started getting sick, the nearby countries thought it was contagious and wouldn't let anyone leave Flevants. That's when everything went to hell. The royal family and rich people ran away early with help from the world government, leaving everyone else behind to die. Anyone who tried to escape for medical help got shot like they were dangerous monsters. Soldiers came into Flevants with orders to kill anyone who had the disease. They went into hospitals and started shooting sick people in their beds. Kids who were already dying from poison got murdered by troops who were supposed to protect them. Law watched his sister Lami get sicker every day, her skin turning white from the disease. When soldiers attacked the hospital, Law hid Lami in a closet and went looking for help. Instead, he found his parents dead, shot by the invading soldiers. The troops chased Law through the burning hospital. He jumped out a window and hid under a bridge while they hunted for him. When he went back to check on other kids, he found them all dead along with the nun who was trying to save them. Law came back to find the hospital destroyed and realized Lami had died in the fire. The poor kid completely lost it, screaming her name while surrounded by dead bodies. His entire city got wiped out in basically a genocide. The episode shows soldiers shooting civilians in the streets, killing hospital patients, and burning down medical buildings. Children who were already dying from poison got executed by troops who treated them like monsters instead of sick victims. Law survived by hiding under a pile of corpses until the killing stopped. A 10-year-old had to pretend to be dead among bodies to avoid getting murdered. He was probably the only person left alive from his entire country. What happened at Flevants shows how messed up people can get when they're scared. Once the other countries decided that sick people were dangerous, they thought it was okay to kill them all, even innocent kids who couldn't hurt anyone. The world government made everything worse because they knew the lead was poisonous, but let people keep using it for money. When people got sick, they helped rich folks escape while leaving everyone else to get slaughtered. Law turning into an angry pirate who wants revenge makes total sense after what he went through. When your whole family gets killed by people who were supposed to help them, of course you're going to hate the world. The episode works because it shows how normal people can do terrible things when they're afraid. The soldiers probably thought they were heroes stopping a disease, but they were really just murdering victims of government lies. This backstory explains why Law is so angry and messed up all the time. He's someone who survived watching his entire world get destroyed. His hatred of authority comes from seeing the worst things people can do to each other. The Flevants tragedy proves that One Piece tackles serious real-world problems like racism, corrupt governments, and mass murder. It uses fantasy stuff to talk about how fear and lies can lead to horrible violence against innocent people. The most messed up part is how the soldiers killed sick kids in hospitals. These were children who were already dying and needed help, but they got treated like dangerous animals. It shows how fear can make people lose all their humanity. Law's story hits different because he was just a normal kid before all this happened. He had loving parents, a cute sister, and dreams of becoming a doctor. The genocide took away everything good in his life and turned him into someone who only knows pain and anger. The episode doesn't hold back from showing how brutal the massacre was. You see civilians running for their lives, patients getting shot in their beds, and children dying scared and alone. It's one of the darkest things One Piece has ever shown. Law's story shows the genocide of Flevance, but the horror continues in Dressrosa, where Doflamingo slaughters gladiators with his strings. Episode 731, titled "As Long as We Breathe, Stop the Deadly Birdcage," shows Doflamingo at his absolute worst. This guy literally stabs gladiators with his razor-sharp string wires while they're trying to protect Luffy, killing them in public as they scream. It's some really dark stuff that shows just how evil this villain island. Dressrosa is completely falling apart right now. Doflamingo's birdcage is slowly getting smaller and will cut everyone on the island into pieces if it closes. Luffy is knocked out and can't use his haki for another minute, so the gladiators are trying to buy him time by fighting Doflamingo themselves. These gladiators know they can't beat Doflamingo, but they're willing to die trying. These are tough guys who've been fighting in the Colosseum for years, but they're about to face someone way stronger than them. They're basically throwing their lives away to help Luffy. Doflamingo starts by cutting Spartan across the chest, slicing him up like he's nothing. When Spartan somehow grabs Doflamingo's leg while bleeding, Doflamingo just shoots him and steps on his head to finish him off. The guy doesn't show any mercy at all. More gladiators get back up to keep fighting, even though they're already hurt and bloody. One of them grabs Doflamingo from behind, trying to hold him so the others can attack. But Doflamingo just makes sheets of razor-sharp string and stabs all of them at once. The way he kills them is really brutal. The gladiators get stabbed by multiple wires that cut through their bodies like they're made of paper. You can hear them screaming as the strings go through their skin. Blood is everywhere as they fall down. Viola watches this whole thing happen, and you can see how horrified she island. Even someone who used to work for Doflamingo is shocked by how cruel he's being. These men are dying terrible deaths just to give Luffy a few extra seconds. The gladiators keep coming even after watching their friends get killed. They know they're going to die, but they keep running at Doflamingo anyway. It's brave, but also really sad. These guys are giving up their lives fighting someone they can't possibly beat. Doflamingo doesn't care at all while killing these people. To him, they're just things in his way that need to be removed. He cuts them down like he's doing chores. Their lives don't matter to him one bit. The episode shows how completely outmatched regular people are against someone with Doflamingo's power. These gladiators are good fighters, but his string abilities let him kill multiple people at once without trying hard. It's not really a fight. It's just slaughter. Meanwhile, everyone else on the island is trying desperately to stop the birdcage from closing. Regular people, Marines, and even Admiral Fujitora are pushing against the deadly wires, but time is running out. The gladiators dying is giving everyone those extra seconds they need. The difference between the heroes trying to save lives and Doflamingo casually murdering people shows what kind of monster he really island. While others risk everything to protect strangers, he kills anyone who bothers him without thinking twice. Viola tries to fight Doflamingo herself later, but he easily beats her up too. She's trying to stop him from killing more people, but she ends up getting overpowered and used to hurt Rebecca. Doflamingo's cruelty spreads to everyone around him. The episode works because it shows what heroism really costs. These gladiators are regular people who get killed horribly, trying to do the right thing. Their sacrifice feels real because we see exactly what they're giving up. Doflamingo's string powers make the violence extra disturbing because of how precise and painful they are. Instead of quick deaths, his victims get slowly cut apart by wires that slice through their bodies. It's torture, pretending to be fighting. These murders happening in public makes them even more horrible. This is right out in the open where everyone can see. Doflamingo wants people to watch him kill their protectors. The gladiators' deaths remind us that in One Piece, being brave doesn't mean you'll survive. Sometimes, good people die terrible deaths while fighting for what's right. The show doesn't pretend that violence doesn't have real consequences. This episode proves that Doflamingo is one of the most evil bad guys in the series. Other villains might be stronger or have bigger plans, but few of them enjoy causing pain as much as he does. He's someone who likes watching people suffer. The timing makes everything more intense because everyone knows Luffy will wake up soon. Every second the gladiators can buy matters, even if it costs them their lives. Their deaths are part of a desperate plan to save everyone. You can see the other characters' reactions to the massacre, and it affects them differently. Some are horrified, others are angry, and some are motivated to fight harder. The violence has real emotional impact on everyone watching. The gladiators themselves show different personalities even in their final moments. Some are scared but brave, others are angry and defiant, and some are calm and accepting. They are individuals with their own feelings about dying. Doflamingo's casual attitude while killing makes him even more frightening. He's just removing obstacles. The cold, businesslike way he murders people is somehow worse than if he was emotional about it. The episode also shows how the birdcage affects the whole island. Buildings are getting sliced up, people are panicking, and everyone knows they're running out of time. The gladiators are dying while their city falls apart around them. The contrast between the chaos everywhere else and Doflamingo's calm brutality creates this really tense atmosphere. While everyone else is desperate and fighting for their lives, he's just methodically killing anyone who gets in his way. When other characters see the gladiators die, it changes how they act. Some become more determined to stop Doflamingo, others get scared, and some realize just how dangerous he really island. The deaths have ripple effects throughout the episode. The animation during the killing scenes doesn't shy away from showing the violence. You see the strings pierce flesh, blood spray everywhere, and the pain on the victims' faces. It's graphic enough to make the horror feel real without being gratuitously gory. The sound effects during these scenes are particularly brutal. You hear the strings cutting through air, the impact when they hit bodies, and the screams of the dying gladiators. The audio makes the violence feel more immediate and disturbing. Doflamingo's slaughter shows pure cruelty, while Sanji's past with Zeph shows brutal sacrifice for survival. But before we dive into that, subscribe to our channel, episode 26, titled Zeph and Sanji's Ambition. The Sea of Dreams, All Blue, shows one of the most messed up survival stories in One Piece. Zeph literally cuts off his own leg and gives all his food to young Sanji, starving himself for weeks just to keep the kid alive. It's really dark stuff. Sanji was just a little kid working as a cook on a cruise ship when Zeph's pirate crew attacked them. The cook pirates robbed the ship and beat up everyone, including Sanji. But then this massive storm hit, and everything went crazy. A huge wave swept Sanji overboard into the stormy sea. Most pirates would have just let the kid drown, but Zeph jumped in after him. Another wave then destroyed both ships, probably killing everyone else. Zeph and Sanji were the only ones left alive. While trying to save Sanji underwater, Zeph's leg got trapped in the wreckage of the sinking ships. The guy was stuck and running out of air, so he did something absolutely brutal. He tied a chain around his leg and used it to cut his own leg off so he could escape and save Sanji. They washed up on this tiny rocky island in the middle of nowhere with almost no food. Zeph divided their small amount of supplies and told Sanji to go to one end of the island while he went to the other, both looking for ships that might rescue them. Sanji rationed his food to last 20 days, but eventually it ran out completely. The kid was starving and desperate, so he went to confront Zeph about his supposedly bigger share of food. When Sanji cut open Zeph's bag, he was horrified to find only treasure inside. The truth was that Zeph had given Sanji all the food from the very beginning. While Sanji was eating and staying alive, Zeph was slowly starving to death. For weeks, the old pirate ate nothing while watching over the kid he had saved. But that wasn't even the worst part. Sanji then realized that Zeph had also cut off his own leg to eat the shipwreck. The guy chopped off his own limb and ate it so that Sanji could have all the real food and survive. Zeph explained that he shared Sanji's dream of finding the All Blue, this legendary sea where all the fish in the world come together. He sacrificed his leg and nearly starved to death because he wanted Sanji to live long enough to chase that dream. They were stuck on that rock for 47 days before a ship finally spotted them and rescued them. By that point, Zeph was basically a skeleton who could barely move. The guy had literally given everything he had to keep a random kid alive. This backstory shows just how far someone will go for another person's dream. Zeph didn't even know Sanji that well, but he was willing to hurt himself and starve to death just so the kid could pursue his goals. It's crazy dedication. The episode works because it shows real desperation and what people do to survive. When you're trapped on a desert island with no food, people do horrible things to stay alive. But instead of hurting Sanji, Zeph hurt himself and gave the kid everything else. Zeph's decision to save Sanji doesn't make sense from a survival perspective. A grown pirate would have a better chance of being rescued than a little kid. But Zeph chose to sacrifice himself anyway because he believed in Sanji's dream. The self-amputation scene is really brutal because it shows what people will do when they're desperate. Cutting off your own leg with a chain is the kind of thing that messes you up forever. The weeks of starvation that followed were probably even worse than losing the leg. Watching yourself slowly waste away while keeping someone else alive takes incredible willpower. Most people would have given up or done something terrible. This backstory explains why Sanji is so protective of food and why he never wastes it. He knows what real starvation feels like, and he's seen someone sacrifice everything just to keep him fed. Food is life itself to him. The relationship between Zeph and Sanji becomes way more meaningful after learning this story. They're survivor and savior, connected by the most extreme situation you can imagine. The episode also shows how trauma changes people. Zeph became a chef instead of continuing as a pirate because his experience on that island changed how he saw life. Almost dying for someone else's dream made him want to help people instead of hurt them. Sanji's loyalty to Zeph makes perfect sense after seeing what the old man sacrificed for him. How do you repay someone who cut off their own leg and nearly starved to death just to keep you alive? You can't ever really pay that back. The story works as a contrast to other survival tales where people become monsters. Instead of eating each other and backstabbing, we see selflessness and sacrifice. Zeph chose to be the victim rather than make someone else suffer. This episode proves that One Piece isn't afraid to tackle the darkest parts of human survival. Self-mutilation, starvation, and the mental trauma that comes with extreme situations are all shown without making it seem less horrible than it really island. The fact that this happened early in the series shows that One Piece was always willing to go dark when the story needed it. This is a story about what it really costs to pursue your dreams. The 47 days they spent on that island must have felt like forever. Every day, wondering if they were going to die. Every day, Zeph getting weaker while Sanji stayed strong. The psychological torture of that situation is almost as bad as the physical pain. You can see why Sanji became such a good cook after this experience. When someone literally gave up their body to feed you, cooking becomes about more than just making food. It becomes about showing love and care through what you make. The episode doesn't shy away from showing how desperate their situation was. These weren't just hungry people. They were dying slowly on a rock with no hope of rescue. The fact that Zeph still chose to save Sanji under those conditions makes it even more incredible. Zeph's brutal sacrifice kept Sanji alive through starvation, but the tragedy shifts to Nami's past, where Belle-Mère is murdered by Arlong in front of her daughters. Episode 36, titled Survive the Mother Belle-Mère and Nami's Family, shows one of the most heartbreaking murders in One Piece. Arlong literally shoots Belle-Mère dead right in front of her daughters Nami and Nojiko, killing their mother figure in cold blood just because she couldn't pay his stupid tax. Belle-Mère was this tough ex-marine who found baby Nami and little Nojiko during a war and decided to raise them as her own kids. She wasn't rich or anything, just a simple woman trying to make a living growing tangerines on their small island. But then Arlong and his fishman pirates showed up and took over. Arlong set up this protection racket, where everyone on the island had to pay him money every month just to stay alive. Adults cost 100, 0 bellies, and kids cost 50, 0 bellies. It was basically extortion, as in a 7, pay up or die. Belle-Mère only had 100, 0 bellies total, which wasn't enough to cover herself and both girls. The townspeople tried to help by suggesting they hide the fact that Nami and Nojiko were Belle-Mère's daughters. If Arlong didn't know about the kids, Belle-Mère could pay for just herself and survive. It was a smart plan that would have saved her life, but Belle-Mère refused to deny her family. When Arlong asked if she had any kids, she could have lied and lived. Instead, she told the truth because she was proud to be their mother. She paid the money for Nami and Nojiko's lives instead of her own. Arlong didn't care about her sacrifice or her love for the kids. He just saw someone who couldn't pay the full amount, so he decided to make an example out of her. He pulled out a gun and pointed it right at Belle-Mère's head while her daughters watched. Belle-Mère's last words were to her girls, telling them to live and be strong. She didn't beg for her life or try to run away. She faced her death with dignity because she knew her sacrifice would keep Nami and Nojiko alive. Then Arlong pulled the trigger and shot her dead right there in front of everyone. The sound of the gunshot echoed across the village as Belle-Mère's body hit the ground. Nami and Nojiko had to watch their mother die in the most brutal way possible. The murder was completely unnecessary from Arlong's perspective. He could have just taken Belle-Mère as a slave or found some other way to punish her. But he chose murder because he wanted to terrorize the entire village and show them what happened to people who couldn't pay. After killing their mother, Arlong had the nerve to recruit Nami into his crew because she was good at drawing maps. He told the traumatized kid that she could buy back her village for 100 million bellies, giving her false hope while keeping her trapped under his control. The episode shows how dictators use violence against families to control entire populations. By killing Belle-Mère in public, Arlong sent a message to everyone else. This is what happens when you don't obey me. Pay up, or your loved ones die too. Belle-Mère's death hit so hard because she was just trying to be a good mother. She wasn't a fighter or someone with special powers. She was a regular person who loved her kids and died protecting them. Her murder feels real and unfair in a way that fantasy violence doesn't. The scene works because it shows the true cost of tyranny. Arlong's rule doesn't just hurt rebels or criminals. It destroys innocent families and kills people whose only crime was being poor. Belle-Mère died because she couldn't afford to live. Nami's reaction to watching her mother get murdered explains why she becomes so desperate to collect money. Every berry she steals brings her closer to the 100 million she needs to free her village. Her greed is survival. The episode proves that One Piece was willing to show real trauma from the very beginning. Watching your parent get executed in front of you is the kind of thing that scars someone for life, and Nami carries that pain with her throughout the series. Belle-Mère's refusal to deny her family shows what real courage looks like. She could have saved herself by lying, but she chose death over dishonoring the people she loved. That kind of moral strength is rare and inspiring. The murder also reveals Arlong's true nature as a racist who sees humans as inferior beings. He kills Belle-Mère without any emotion because he doesn't consider human life valuable. To him, she's just an animal that failed to pay tribute. This episode sets up the entire emotional foundation for Nami's character arc. Everything she does from this point forward is motivated by the trauma of watching Belle-Mère die and the desperate hope that she can somehow undo that tragedy by buying back her village. The way Arlong treats the whole situation like a business transaction makes it even more disturbing. He's just collecting debts. The casual nature of the murder shows how little human life means to him. You can see the exact moment when Nami's childhood ends. She goes from being a carefree kid playing with her sister to watching her mother's brains get blown out. That kind of trauma changes someone forever, and it explains why Nami becomes so hard and calculating. The townspeople's helplessness during the murder shows how powerless regular people are against organized violence. They want to help Belle-Mère, but they know that interfering will just get them killed too. Everyone has to watch in silence while a good person dies. Belle-Mère's decision to acknowledge her daughters, even though it costs her life, represents the best of human nature. Most people would have lied to save themselves, but she couldn't bring herself to pretend Nami and Nojiko didn't exist. Her love was stronger than her survival instinct. The timing of the murder makes it extra cruel because it happens right when the family was finally getting happy. Belle-Mère had just told the girls about her past, and they were bonding as a real family. Then Arlong shows up and destroys everything in minutes. The way Nami tries to attack Arlong after her mother's death shows how brave she is even as a little kid. She knows she can't win, but she's so angry and hurt that she tries anyway. It takes incredible courage to fight back when you've just watched someone you love die. The recruitment of Nami right after killing her mother is psychological torture. Arlong knows exactly what he's doing, taking a traumatized child and making her work for the person who murdered her parent. It's manipulation at its cruelest. The promise about buying back the village for 100 million bellies is probably a lie from the start. Arlong never intended to let Nami go free, but the false hope keeps her working and prevents her from trying to escape or get revenge. Belle-Mère's tangerine trees become this symbol of her memory throughout the series. Every time Nami sees tangerines, she thinks about her mother and the sacrifice she made. It's a constant reminder of what she's fighting to protect. The episode shows how quickly everything can fall apart. One day you're a happy family, the next day your mom is dead, and you're working for her killer. Life can change completely in just a few minutes, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. What makes this scene so powerful is how relatable it feels. Most people have someone they love who they'd die to protect. Belle-Mère's choice feels real, because it's something any good parent might do in the same situation. The fact that this happens early in One Piece shows that the series doesn't mess around when it comes to emotional stakes. Characters have real trauma and real reasons for their actions. It's about people dealing with serious pain and loss. Belle-Mère's death broke Nami's world, but in Skypiea, she faces new terror when a giant snake swallows her, Gan Fall, and Issa alive. Episode 176, titled Climb Giant Jack, Showdown in the Upper Ruins, ends with one of the most scary scenes in the Skypiea arc. Nami, Gan Fall, and little Issa get swallowed alive by this huge python, which is basically everyone's worst nightmare come to life. The upper ruins of Skypiea are a complete mess right now. Everyone's fighting. Everyone. Zoro, Wiper, and Gan Fall are battling this priest guy named Ohm, while other soldiers are chasing people around the forest. It's total chaos, with everyone trying to get to this giant beanstalk thing. Nami and Issa are running through the forest trying to get away from the bad guys who are hunting them down. They're scared and just trying to find somewhere safe to hide, but they end up running straight toward where all the fighting is happening. This giant snake called Nola has been hanging around the ruins the whole time. This thing is absolutely massive, way bigger than any snake should be. It's been following people around and causing problems, but nobody thought it would do something this horrible. When Nami and Issa get to the giant jack area, they're still being chased. Wiper sees them and gets mad, thinking Nami is an enemy. He fires this rocket launcher thing right at her, trying to blow her up. Gan Fall jumps in to save Nami from getting blasted by Wiper's weapon. He's trying to be the good guy and protect people from getting hurt in this war, but saving her puts him right next to the two girls at the worst possible time. That's when the giant snake attacks. This massive python opens its mouth and swallows all three of them at once. Nami, Gan Fall, and little Issa just disappear into its throat. You can see them getting pulled into the dark, gross inside of the creature. The scene is really scary because getting eaten alive is one of the worst things that could happen to someone. They're awake and aware as they slide down the snake's throat into its stomach. It's cramped, disgusting, and seems completely hopeless. Inside the snake, they're surrounded by stomach acid and digestive juices. The walls are moving and squeezing around them as the creature's body tries to digest its meal. They can barely breathe and there's no obvious way to get out. Issa is just a little kid, so she's probably terrified and crying. Nami is tough, but this has to be one of the worst situations she's ever been in. Gan Fall is trying to stay calm and figure out how to save them. But what can you do when you're stuck inside a giant snake? The other fighters watch in shock as their friends just vanish into the python's mouth. Zoro and Wiper see that 3 people just got eaten alive right in front of them, but they're too busy fighting to help. Ohm doesn't care that people just got swallowed by a snake. He tells Zoro and Wiper that they got distracted, and there's nothing they can do about it now. This priest guy acts like watching people get eaten is just normal. This scene works because it hits on fears that everyone has about being eaten by something bigger than you. Getting swallowed alive is a nightmare that feels way worse than regular fighting because you're so helpless and it's so gross. The body horror part makes it extra disturbing. They're inside a living creature that's trying to digest them. All the biological stuff happening around them makes it even more horrible. The episode shows how fast things can go from bad to terrible in a dangerous place like Skypiea. One second they're running from enemies, the next second they're inside a giant snake's stomach facing a really awful death. The timing makes it even crueler because it happens right when Gan Fall was trying to help. He saved Nami from Wiper's attack, but his good deed led to all three of them getting eaten. Sometimes trying to be nice makes everything worse. This scene proves that One Piece doesn't mess around when it comes to putting characters in really scary situations. Being swallowed by a giant snake is the stuff of nightmares, and the show doesn't try to make it seem less terrible than it really island. You can imagine how claustrophobic it must feel inside there. They're probably covered in slime and stomach acid, can barely see anything, and the walls are constantly moving around them. It's like being buried alive, except worse, because you're inside something that's trying to eat you. The fact that Isa is just a kid makes it even more disturbing. Adults getting eaten is bad enough, but watching a little girl get swallowed by a monster is really messed up. She probably doesn't even understand what's happening to her. Nami has been through a lot of scary stuff, but this might be the worst. She's faced pirates and storms and all kinds of danger, but being digested alive by a giant snake is on a whole different level of horror. The other characters' reactions show how shocking this moment island. Even in the middle of a big fight, everyone stops for a second when they see people get eaten. It's the kind of thing that's so horrible it makes you forget everything else. This episode shows that in the One Piece world, nature itself can be just as dangerous as any villain. The snake is just following its instincts, but that doesn't make getting eaten any less terrifying. Nami getting swallowed by a giant snake is terrifying, but Robin's flashback shows worse when the government sinks a ship full of civilians. So you think you know how dark One Piece can get? Episode 278, titled "Say You Want to Live, We Are Friends," will change your mind real quick. This episode shows Vice Admiral Sakazuki, who becomes Admiral Akainu later, ordering Marines to blow up an entire ship full of innocent civilians trying to escape Ohara. We're talking about families, kids, elderly people, all murdered in cold blood because they might be helping scholars. The Ohara incident was supposed to be a targeted mission to take out the scholars who were studying forbidden history. The world government wanted to destroy the Tree of Knowledge and kill the archaeologists, but they told everyone that regular civilians could escape safely. Turns out, that was complete garbage. Robin is telling her whole sad backstory to the Straw Hats while they're stuck at Eni's lobby. She's trying to explain why she can't trust anyone and why she thinks the world will always see her as an enemy. The Ohara flashback shows exactly where all this trauma comes from. During the Buster Call attack on Ohara, the scholars were desperately trying to save their research, while regular people were just trying to get out alive. There was this evacuation ship that was supposed to take civilians to safety, away from all the fighting and destruction happening on the island. Sakazuki spots the evacuation ship trying to leave with civilians on board. Instead of letting innocent people escape like they're supposed to, he decides they might be hiding scholars among them. But instead of boarding the ship to check or asking questions, he makes the most horrible decision you can imagine. Sakazuki orders his Marines to fire on the evacuation ship. They blast the civilian vessel with cannons, sinking it and killing everyone on board. Men, women, children, all dead because one crazy Marine thought they might be helping scholars escape from the island. The people on that ship weren't soldiers or criminals or anything dangerous. They were just regular folks trying to survive a military attack on their home. Families with little kids, old people, workers, murdered by the same government that promised to keep them safe. Even other Marines are shocked by what Sakazuki just ordered. Kuzan, who later becomes Admiral Aokiji, can't believe what he's seeing. These guys are supposed to be the good guys protecting people, but they're slaughtering innocent civilians without any proof they did anything wrong. Sakazuki justifies the whole massacre by saying that even one scholar escaping would make the entire operation pointless. To him, killing dozens of innocent people is totally worth it if it stops one criminal from getting away. That's terrorist logic, not the thinking of someone who protects people. The sinking ship becomes this symbol of how the world government really works. They talk big about justice and protecting citizens, but they'll murder anyone who gets in their way. Regular people's lives mean absolutely nothing when they're trying to achieve their goals. Robin has to watch this happen as a little 8-year-old kid. She sees the government that's hunting her murder a whole ship full of people who might have helped her. It teaches her that trusting anyone will just get them killed. which explains pretty much her entire personality. This scene shows that the Marines are basically an army that commits war crimes whenever it's convenient. Sakazuki doesn't even hesitate to order the execution of civilians, and his soldiers follow orders without asking any questions. The episode proves that the world government has always been willing to commit straight-up genocide to stay in control. The Ohara incident wasn't some accident or mistake. It was systematic murder of anyone who threatened their version of what history should be. Sakazuki's decision here reveals what kind of person he really is. Years before he becomes Fleet Admiral, he's always been someone who sees innocent people as acceptable losses. The evacuation ship massacre shows exactly what kind of justice this guy believes in. The contrast between this horrible flashback and what's happening in the present makes Robin's trust issues completely understandable. When you've seen the government murder innocent civilians just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, how can you ever feel safe around other people? This war crime also explains why so many people in the One Piece world don't trust the Marines. Stories like this get around, and people figure out that the supposed protectors are just as dangerous as any pirate crew when it serves their purposes. The episode doesn't try to make what happened seem less horrible than it really was. Innocent people got murdered by their own government, and there's no way to sugarcoat that kind of evil. It's a straightforward look at state-sponsored terrorism. Sakazuki's actions at Ohara are basically a preview of how he'll act during the Marineford War, where he shows the same willingness to sacrifice anyone for his twisted version of justice. This guy has been a complete monster from the very start of his career. The civilian ship massacre represents everything that's wrong with giving people absolute power. When someone thinks their cause justifies any action, innocent people always end up dead. Sakazuki thinks he's saving the world, but he's really just murdering families who did nothing wrong. This scene works so well because it shows how trauma completely shapes someone's view of the world. Robin's inability to trust people is a survival mechanism she learned from watching the government kill anyone connected to her. The fact that Robin had to witness this when she was just 8 years old makes it even more devastating. A little kid had to watch innocent people die because they might have helped her escape. That kind of guilt and fear would mess up anyone for life. The episode forces you to face the reality that sometimes the official good guys are actually the real villains. The Marines committed mass murder at Ohara, and they did it all in the name of justice and keeping the world safe. What makes this even more disturbing is how casual Sakazuki is about the whole thing. He doesn't struggle with the decision or show any emotion. He just orders the ship destroyed like he's swatting a fly. Human life means nothing to him. The other Marines following his orders without question shows how military culture can turn normal people into killers. They probably joined to protect people, but now they're murdering civilians because their superior told them to. You can see why Robin develops such a dark worldview after experiencing this. When the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones trying to kill you, it becomes impossible to believe in any kind of justice or goodness in the world. The evacuation ship sinking is one of those images that sticks with you. All those people screaming as they drown, killed by the very government they trusted to keep them safe. It's the kind of betrayal that destroys your faith in everything. The slaughter at Ohara showed the government killing innocents, but Sabaody reveals the Celestial Dragons doing the same in public with full protection. Here's an episode that'll make your blood boil. Episode 391, titled Tyranny. The rulers of Sabaody, the Celestial Dragons, introduces us to the Celestial Dragons, and they're basically everything wrong with humanity rolled into a few disgusting people. These guys openly own slaves, beat people for fun, and murder anyone they want, all while the government protects them. The Straw Hats have just landed on Sabaody Archipelago, which is this fancy tourist spot where rich people come to shop and have fun. But underneath all the pretty bubbles and attractions, there's this really dark truth about who actually runs the place and what they're allowed to do to regular people. Hachin is showing the crew around and warning them about the world nobles, also called Celestial Dragons. These are the descendants of the people who founded the world government, so they think they're basically gods. They wear bubble helmets because they don't want to breathe the same air as normal humans. While they're walking around, Luffy's group runs into this guy named Devil Diaz, who's begging someone to remove his slave collar. He's crying and just wants to go home to see his family. The poor guy is so desperate that he tries to take the collar off himself. That's when the collar explodes like a bomb right on his neck. The thing was designed to kill anyone who tries to escape slavery. Devil Diaz collapses, probably dying, and everyone around just acts like it's normal. Nobody helps him or seems shocked that a person just got blown up. Then Saints Shalria and Rosward show up, two celestial dragons who own slaves and treat it like a hobby. When they see Devil Diaz lying there wounded from the explosion, Shalria calls him useless and decides to shoot him. She pulls out a gun and kills him right there in the street. The most messed up part is how everyone reacts. All the regular people immediately get on their knees when the celestial dragons walk by. Nobody tries to help the dying slave or stop the murder. They're all too scared to even look upset about what's happening. Hachan quickly tells Luffy and the others to kneel down too. He knows that if they don't show respect to these monsters, the entire marine fleet will come after them. Papag explains that harming a celestial dragon is considered an act of war against the world government. You can see Luffy struggling not to interfere while this is happening. His whole thing is protecting people who can't protect themselves. but he's being told that helping would just make everything worse. He has to watch someone get murdered and do nothing about it. The episode shows how the slavery system works on Sabaody. People get captured, fitted with explosive collars, and sold to rich buyers who treat them like property. The collars make sure they can never escape or fight back without dying. What makes this even more disturbing is how legal and normal it all seems. The celestial dragons are doing it right out in public because they know nobody can stop them. The government protects their right to own and kill people. Shalria shooting Devil Dias isn't some moment of anger or emotion. She does it casually, like she's throwing away trash. To her, slaves are just things she can destroy when they stop being useful. The episode proves that the world government is about maintaining a system where the rich and powerful can do whatever they want to anyone below them. The Marines exist to protect the slavers, not the slaves. This scene works because it shows evil that feels real and systematic. The celestial dragons are what happens when people get so much power that they stop seeing others as human. It's the kind of cruelty that actually exists in our world. The fact that everyone has to kneel and show respect to these murderers makes it even more sickening. The victims have to pretend their oppressors deserve honor and worship. It's psychological torture on top of the physical violence. Luffy's reaction sets up his eventual punch of a celestial dragon later in the arc. You can see him reaching his breaking point as he watches innocent people get tortured and killed by these protected monsters. Something has to give eventually. The episode doesn't try to make the slavery seem less horrible than it really island. People are getting blown up by explosive collars and shot in the street for entertainment. One Piece forces viewers to confront how evil institutionalized oppression can be. The celestial dragons represent everything wrong with inherited power and social hierarchy. They didn't earn their status or prove they deserve it. They just happened to be born into the right families. Now they use that accident of birth to justify treating everyone else like animals. The contrast between the fun, colorful Sabaody setting and the brutal reality of what happens there makes the horror even more effective. All those pretty bubbles and tourist attractions are built on a foundation of human suffering and systematic murder. This episode shows that sometimes the most evil people are the ones society tells you to respect and obey. The celestial dragons are mass murderers and slavers, but they're also the ultimate authority that everyone has to bow down to. The way the celestial dragons dress and act makes their evil even more disturbing. They look like space aliens with their bubble helmets and fancy clothes, but they're doing very human kinds of cruelty. It's like they're playing dress-up while committing murder. Devil Dias probably had a family waiting for him somewhere, wondering if he was okay. But to the celestial dragons, he's just a broken toy that needs to be thrown away. They don't think about the people who loved him or the life he had before slavery. The explosive collars are particularly cruel because they give slaves false hope. Someone might think about escaping or fighting back, but the collar reminds them that freedom means death. It's designed to break people's spirits completely. Brook and Chopper watch this whole thing happen, and you can see how shocked they are. These guys have seen plenty of violence, but this kind of casual cruelty is different. It's not pirates fighting pirates. It's rich people torturing helpless victims for fun. The episode also shows how the system corrupts everyone involved. The regular people on Sabaody know what's happening to slaves, but they don't help because they're scared. Fear makes everyone complicit in the cruelty. Hotchan's warning about staying quiet reveals how widespread this oppression. Island he knows that any resistance will bring down the full weight of the government on innocent people. The Marine station nearby don't do anything to stop the murder either. They're supposed to protect people, but their real job is protecting the celestial dragon's right to own and kill slaves. Justice means nothing when power is involved. Shalria's gun looks tiny and harmless, but it represents the ultimate authority in the One Piece world. When she points it at someone, she's backed by the entire world government. One little weapon becomes unstoppable because of the system behind it. The way other people avoid eye contact with the celestial dragons shows how dehumanizing the whole system island. Everyone has to pretend they don't see the slavery and murder happening right in front of them. Silence becomes survival. This episode sets up the moral conflict that drives the rest of the Sabaody arc. How long can good people watch evil happen before they have to act? Luffy's eventual explosion feels inevitable after seeing him struggle with this impossible situation. The slave auction house that gets mentioned in this episode represents how slavery has become a business. People are buying and selling human beings like they're shopping for furniture. The cruelty has been systematized and commercialized. You can see how this experience affects all the Straw Hats differently. Some are angry, some are horrified, and some are confused about why nobody's helping. It forces them to confront the reality of the world they're living in. The episode works because it doesn't offer easy answers or quick solutions. The celestial dragons have too much power to fight directly, but ignoring their cruelty feels impossible too. It's a moral dilemma with no good options. This scene also explains why so many people in the One Piece world become pirates or revolutionaries. When the legal system protects slavers and murderers, breaking the law starts to look like the only moral choice available. That's it for today. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like these, and I'll see you in the next one.